welcome to you. We also have with us Ms. Vindhya Tulasi Adappa, Assistant General Counsel, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, USA. A very warm welcome to you too. I can't even crack a joke on that. Dr. Anil Kumar Asthana, gastroenterologist and hepatologist, Australia. Mr. Pranav Banot, solicitor and mediator. Mr. Ranjiv Rajkumar Nirghin, member of the South African Society of Advocates, South Africa. Very, very warm welcome to our panelists. This panel, ladies and gentlemen, as you all are aware, will focus on the engagement with younger members of the Indian Diaspora. We have with us on the dais the Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs, Mr. V.K. Singh. We also have with us on the dais Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Gyaneshwar Mule. We also have with us on the dais Ravish Kumar, the coordinator of this session. He is the spokesperson, Ministry of External Affairs. And we are awaiting Honorable Minister Rathore. And we also have the presence of Honorable Minister Rathore here with us on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, I am now going to request Mr. Gyaneshwar Mule to please open the session. I'm going to request you all to please settle down, take your seats. Please, everyone, to my right. There are lots of seats vacant in the House. All of you back.
Good morning once again. We are about to begin this session. This session is titled as Engagement with Younger Members of Indian Diaspora. We have with us Honorable Minister, General Dr. V.K. Singh, to chair this meeting. We also have the co-chair, Shri Rajyavardhan Singh Rathore, MOS Youth Affairs and Sports. The sequence of this session and the subsequent sessions would be like this. We'll first request the chair, co-chair, to make short remarks. Thereafter, we'll have a presentation of the summary and recommendations of a conference, Pravasi Bharati Divas conference, that was held on the very theme during 2017-18. And thereafter, the floor will be open to question and answers. Our panelists will pitch in to respond to the questions that will be raised or doubts that need to be clarified. So with this, I request Honorable Minister of State, Youth Affairs and Sports to make some opening remarks. Thank you, sir.
General V.K. Singh, the panelists who are here, the large number of guests who are present in front of us, traveled long distances to come here, especially the youth who are here. First of all, my gratitude and thanks for putting this structure together where the panelists and we will try and attempt to answer the questions that you have. And I do hope that you have a lot of questions because youth, irrespective of where they are, whichever country they are, youth are youth. And we have our own issues. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm saying we. I don't know whether you allow me to be part of youth, but youth have their own issues. They're pretty much similar. You know, many, many years ago, I wasn't very young when I first traveled abroad. I wasn't very young. I'd already done about maybe 6-7 years of military service. I was somewhere about 28, 29 when I first traveled abroad. And as a soldier, I'd stayed on the border, of course, under General V.K. Singh then, to guard the borders. And looking beyond the border, everything used to seem very, very foreign to us. And we were not very trustworthy of anything which was across the border. But things changed. And as I started traveling abroad, I realized everything is the same. Yeah, everything is the same abroad. The smiles, the laugh, the pains, the pleasure, the family values, everything is similar. Jokes, everything is similar. So life has become very enriched after moving around the world as a sports person. And therefore, together when we come here with a large number of youth, I hope that's not being done on purpose, right? Right. Okay. So I'll tell you a joke. So I was traveling with my Italian friends, and I was training in Italy for a long time, and this was my early days. And there was this, you know, you love the song irrespective of whether you understand or not. In any case, most of the English movies I don't understand. So, but you love the concept. So the music was playing, and the music was very nice, and we were putting it on repeat. And I said, the words were "Arriva la Boomba." So it's a very nice Italian song. It's "Arriva la Boomba." So I said, all right, I'm enjoying the music, but what does it mean? So he says, my Italian friend said, the bomb is arriving. So, yeah, somewhat like this. He said, the bomb is arriving. I said, what's so nice about a bomb arriving? You know, typical military guy. He says, no, this is not that bomb. This is the girl. So I said, oh, I thought Italians were different, but they're the same as India. So you see, the youth are same everywhere. So let's have a lot of questions from you. And the whole purpose of coming together is to integrate with each other, sync with each other, and try and help each other to move forward. We try and learn from you, the Indian youth who are living in India, try and learn from you. And not just this meeting, which happens once in a year or once in 2 years. We need to establish connects with each other, which are through technology, so that this sort of learning and living together continues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajavardhan. This particular session, engagement with younger members of the Indian Diaspora. Shall we continue in English, or do you want it in Hindi?
English.
English? हाथ उठाइए जरा, हिंदी वाले, English वाले. Okay, they're equal numbers, so we'll continue in both. एक छोटी सी चीज बतानी है about this particular thing. You know, in the intervening year, that is last year, we organized various discussions, and this was part of that discussion. Our panel, which is sitting here, after discussing, made a report and gave recommendations. Now, what Dhaneshwar Mule told you, question and answers, these are suggestions on the recommendations made. Otherwise, we'll carry on with question answers and it will never end. So, suggestions that you will see, which will be flashed, recommendations made by this panel, we would like to know from you if you want to add something to it in this particular theme of engaging with the, if you don't know the subject, there will be a problem. Okay. Engagement with the younger members of the Indian diaspora, right? So about this, if you have suggestions, one by one we will ask you, give us the suggestions. And unfortunately, your chair and co-chair are both from the army. We would proceed with certain army methodology, no long-winded speech, just come to the crux of the issue, okay? Otherwise, we'll be circling the globe. So we'll not circle the globe. We will be here taking your suggestions. Now with this, we'll start with the next listing.
Now I'll request our moderator, Shri Ravish Kumar, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, to make the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar and good afternoon. I welcome you all to this first session, the theme-based session on engagement with young members of the Indian diaspora. This is a topic which is not only very relevant, but I think it is going to redefine our engagement with Indian diaspora for decades to come, but perhaps in many ways will also define our perspectives on the foreign policy. My name is Ravish Kumar. I am the spokesperson in the Ministry of External Affairs, and I also will be coordinating this session. I am delighted that we have Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs, General V.K. Singh, who is the chair of this session, and Honorable Minister of State for Youth Affairs and Sports, Colonel Rajavardhan Rathore, who is the co-chair of the session. I also acknowledge the presence of Secretary C.P. in OIA, and above all the panelists as the Secretary mentioned, that these panelists, they were already here with us more than a year ago on 16 December, when we had a brainstorming session on this topic. See, I will come to the recommendations of the session later on, but I thought I should explain to you the context of the meeting so that we can have a much more informed Q&A session. We have been talking about Indian diaspora as India's strength, and this has been a priority area for the Ministry of External Affairs. You would have seen, and you can see some of the pictures here, how the Prime Minister and Honorable External Affairs Minister, they have driven this initiative of connecting to the Indian diaspora. EA mentioned earlier in her speech how a relief for an Indian diaspora is just a tweet away. And I can share with you that the vision which has been articulated by our leaders, it has percolated down to all our missions and posts and to all our officers as well. I think we need to start with this. Why do you think we need this engagement? Why do we need to engage the younger members of the Indian diaspora? And there are a few points which I mentioned. Young Indian diaspora is a force multiplier. If you take the total population of Indian diaspora as 31 million, we don't have the figures for the Indian diaspora, and frankly, it's very difficult to define as well what constitutes this group. But if we take a conservative figure, we are talking about 15 million people who would fall in this category of Indian diaspora. This group is very different from their forefathers. Their occupational profile is different, and so are their dreams and ambitions. While we have continued, our missions have continued, the government has continued the engagement with Indian diaspora who are physically and emotionally connected to India. There is a sense that as we move into the third and fourth generation, the link is not as strong as it should be or as it used to be with the first and second generation. The exposure of the Indian diaspora, the younger members, is limited. Many of them have not even visited India. Their emotional connect with India also is something I think which we discussed when we had the panel discussion on 16 December 2017. I thought since most of you, or almost all of you, were not present in that session, I will just start with a recap of what we did when we had a panel discussion a year ago. You are aware that the PBD used to be an annual event till 2015, and then we decided that it should become a biannual event. And in the intervening period, we will try to introduce theme-based discussions, a much more structured small group, so that we can come up with certain set of recommendations for the leadership. One of the theme-based discussion was on this topic of engagement with younger members of the Indian diaspora, which was held at Pravasi Bharatiya Kendra in New Delhi. At that time, it was chaired by the External Affairs Minister, and Honorable MOS was the co-chair, and all the panelists were present. We had selected 7 panelists from abroad, 2 from India, to be part of the discussion. Out of the 7, we have 5 of them who are present here, and 2 from India who are attending this session. 2 of them could not attend. I will introduce the panelists later on. The members themselves were carefully selected, and they belong to different parts of the world. We have members from Australia, Germany, Israel, Kenya, South Africa, UK, and USA, and 2 resource persons from India. They belonged to different backgrounds, and between them, they have that wealth of experience to contribute to a much more concrete and a better discussion. Moving on to the objective of the session which took place, the idea was to find out means to engage with this group, to connect with the members of the Indian diaspora, which is an entirely different target audience compared to the first and second generation migrants from India to different countries. How do we create an emotional connect among the younger members of the Indian diaspora with India, and also to examine, which we did, whether we need a different approach when we are trying to connect with the Indian audience, to the younger members of the Indian diaspora. Whether the earlier approach which we had of the strong cultural bond, is it sufficient for the younger members of the Indian diaspora who are based abroad, who have never visited India, and whose knowledge about India may be limited. Also to invite ideas and suggestions for the development of nation-specific content, and whether these suggestions can contribute to the development of New India. What are the different approaches of engagement which we can follow? And finally, we also debated whether the present government or embassy-driven approach is sufficient, or does it require a diaspora-led approach to connect the younger members to India. Finally, as I mentioned, I will briefly introduce the panelists. We have Dr. Anil Asthana from Australia. He's a gastroenterologist and hepatologist by profession. Ms. Ayelet Dekel from Israel. She looks after India desk in a private company in Israel. Mr. Rajiv Nirgin from South Africa. Mr. Pranav Bhanot from UK, also solicitor who specializes in commercial disputes. Ms. Vindhya Tulasi Adappa from the US. And from India we have Ms. Rashmi Das. She heads the largest voluntary organization of international students who come to India to study. And Mr. Shobhit Mathur, Executive Director of Vision India Foundation. Now I move to the status report on the recommendations. There were several recommendations which came from the panelists. And in our internal discussion, there were certain points which we could not accommodate because in many cases they belong to a different ministry. So we have kind of crystallized a set of recommendations made by the panelists, and today I will present where we are on those recommendations. There are 11 of them. You see, the first recommendation which was made in the language and cultural section, it was to introduce short-term courses and online resources on Indian languages. When we contacted the concerned ministry, the response which we received was quite positive. We got inputs that many institutions, Indian institutions, they are already offering special courses on learning Hindi and other modern Indian languages. There are some online courses as well. But in addition to what we have also asked our mission to support any initiative which comes forward or which is supported by Indian diaspora for this objective, which is on the screen. I have two screenshots from Kendriya Hindi Sansthan. And there's a course which is Hindi Kavya Evam Katha Sahitya. So basically there's something which is already there, but we are sensitizing our missions and posts to also support the diaspora on this initiative. On the next one, it was to introduce a cultural visa for young Indian diaspora. I'm sure all of you who are in this hall, you are aware that now Indian diaspora can avail of the OCI scheme, where no visa is required to visit India. In addition, those willing to visit India or know more about India can also avail of the Know India program, which is a flagship initiative for diaspora engagement, which connects India to the diaspora. The third recommendation was to offer courses on Indian music, history, and culture. We did a bit of research on this, and ICCR, which is the nodal institution, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, to promote Indian culture, Indian heritage abroad. In fact, on their website, you have a list of 53 recognized institutions, which are all where you can take a look and join that institute depending on your area of interest. I must also mention here that ICCR runs several cultural centers abroad. At this point of time, we have 37, which imparts in training in different disciplines of Indian culture. But there are also several institutes of cultural studies in India, which is also open to Indian diaspora, and you can enroll yourself in these institutes. The fourth recommendation was on providing information on educational opportunities in India. And frankly, in today's age, I think this is something which is available everywhere, online as well as offline. But I thought I'll mention about a very specific program by Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is a Study in India program. But EDSIL, Educational Consultants India Limited, they do organize educational fairs in select countries, where you have a significant strength of Indian diaspora. They do take several educational companies abroad, where they participate in their own fair. Sometimes they organize their own fair, but they also participate in the educational fairs organized by those countries. And that is a good platform for all of you to get knowledge about educational opportunities in India. The fifth recommendation was to enhance interaction of diaspora with Indian universities. What we propose to do is that as part of the Know India program, we propose to include a visit to an Indian university. Separately, after we received the recommendation, we have sensitized all our missions and posts abroad to work on enhancing cooperation in the education sector, including tie-ups between Indian and foreign universities. And many of you who are coming from developed countries, you would be familiar with several tie-ups which have been forged between a foreign university and an Indian university in the last few years. Moving on to the economic slide and recommendations. It relates to providing information on investment opportunities in India. At the risk of not sounding too modest, I must say that Ministry of External Affairs and our missions abroad, they have been at the forefront in disseminating information on investment opportunities through road shows, seminars, company visits, and facilitating interactions between the chambers, between the Indian Chambers of Commerce and the local Chambers of Commerce. We do invite Indian diaspora to come and attend such events. I was the Consul General in Frankfurt before I took up this position. And I remember in all our Make in India road shows, we had a sizable strength, sizable numbers from the Indian diaspora who came and attended such events. We, of course, work very closely with Invest India and Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion to facilitate this recommendation. Another recommendation was to make available digital business directory of Indians living abroad, both who are doing business and who are professionals. Indian missions abroad, they have been tasked to maintain a directory of prominent Indians, including businessmen, living in their jurisdiction. And I think if you contact any of the missions and posts abroad, you can easily find out and be able to get a hold of that list. The list is also maintained by several Indian community organizations who are active in your area, and also by the companies themselves. I think as far as this recommendation is concerned, we have to ensure that any public directory which is available for anybody should conform to the privacy laws which are prevalent in that country. I know that in many countries this is something which is not allowed. So that is something which we have to keep in mind. But if you have any specific query about any individual, I'm sure our embassies and consulates should be able to help. The 8th recommendation was regarding developing India-centric products by organizing business plan and competitions and hackathons. If you follow what has been going on the last at least 2-3 years, Niti Aayog and several such agencies and institutions, ministries, they have organized specific competitions to develop India-specific solutions in a range of areas, in mobility, for example. And people who are based abroad, Indian diaspora also, they have participated at such events. We are working with some of the other ministries to ensure that when they advertise, they make those competitions also open to members of Indian diaspora, somebody who's not holding an Indian passport, but who's connected to India, who's an OCI card holder. Many such events are also organized by universities and educational institutions. The 9th recommendation is on organizing startups in countries with significant Indian diaspora. And I think it is very natural that when Prime Minister launched Stand Up India, Startup India campaign here, that we should take this message forward as well. I'm sure you are, and some of you would have attended several startup sessions organized by our missions and posts abroad. In fact, I have just given examples of few, and you can see a couple of pictures from Sydney and one from Hong Kong. This topic is becoming very important for the Ministry of External Affairs, and we have been organizing such sessions, such pitching sessions for startups in several countries. We ourselves, we are willing to play the facilitator role, the promotional role. If anybody from the Indian diaspora is interested, I think the missions and posts should be able to connect you to the right person in India. Formation of dedicated India-focused think tank abroad. There are several think tanks which are, of course, active in the realm of foreign policy. They have expanded their network. We have contacted ICW and RIS and to explore the possibility of making more such tie-ups with foreign think tanks. ICWA, they have 49 foreign collaborators across the continent. But I think here it is important to also understand that this is something which actually can be diaspora-led, where a group of people can set up your own think tank, which can exclusively focus on India or India-related matters, or sometimes also between the bilateral relations of the country where you are based and India. We already have a few, in fact. I remember that there is a very reputed think tank in Indonesia, which is called Strategic Asia-Indonesia, which is being run by a member of the Indian diaspora. So that is a model which perhaps can be replicated by Indian diaspora in other countries as well. And whatever support which needs to be provided, I think that can be done by the embassies and consulates. And coming to the last and final recommendation on involvement of Indian student organization abroad to act as a link between India and the country where you are based. Our missions are willing to undertake this responsibility. We are reaching out to students. We are reaching out to students through open houses, through meetups when you have at the beginning of an academic session. Many of our missions are organizing open houses and meetups, you know, where the new members of the Indian student community, they get a chance to come and interact with the ambassador, with other members of the Indian mission. And this is something which I think is gaining a lot of traction in the last at least 2-3 years when we have gone on this reach out, activity. Overall, I must say that the session itself provided us an opportunity to look at how we can ask our missions to reach out to you, to the younger members of the Indian diaspora, in a much better way. Some discussion took place that it has to be a two-way process. I think while the Indian government can reach out, but some form of initiative also needs to come out from the Indian diaspora. You have a very important role to play if we have to move in that direction. But we feel that this session and the earlier session which took place is just the beginning, and this dialogue should continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravish, for the very informative presentation. Now we're going to open the floor for question answer. As Honorable Minister says, you know, only suggestions. So we have a few people with mic, and you know, just to facilitate a quick sequence, if you can also write and give your suggestions to us, we will then take it one by one. Please identify yourself. Be very, very brief while you know, making your suggestion.
Hello.
We'll take one, the gentleman on the right.
My name is Naval Kishore Singh.
Okay, next.
I live in Sydney, Australia, and I have come all the way from there to contribute in the pursuit of developing India at a much more higher speed. And I have got a lot of things, because I am a bit different than others in the sense that I have traveled in Australia on road right from Sydney to Cairns. And I know how the rural roads, they are developed there, how it can be made here. So I can contribute in the roads, traffic authority arrangements. Then, because I do the business from India, I import the leather goods from Calcutta, Kanpur, Agra, and Delhi. And so I know about the business, how many improvements India needs to do to make it much more effective, much more in volume. And that I can contribute. And I'm looking forward for an opportunity to speak the ministers, honorable ministers who are available here, so that they can take it to the different ministries. And at the last, I can contribute. The best thing which I can do is to help the government, Indian government, to stop the outflow of the black money from India to overseas destinations. How it is taking place, how it can be stopped, how that I can give you the full idea about it. So if you give me, sir, honorable minister, and if you can give me an appointment, I'm ready to contribute straight away. Thank you.
धन्यवाद आपका. एक बार आप सबसे दोबारा, I want to request, be relevant to the topic. We have got lots of things to be discussed. Tomorrow, day after, we can discuss all those things ad nauseam. There's no problem. But today, in this little time, I only want your recommendations based on what this panel has discussed and thrown at you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Saurabh Sharma, and I am coming from Tokyo, Japan. I am a researcher there, and my research area is the nuclear energy. So my suggestion to the government is that to accumulate all youth and their efforts, the government can appoint a special appointment at the embassies as a youth envoy in the different missions abroad. And my willingness, as we all know, that recently India and Japan entered into the force of the India-Japan Civil Nuclear Cooperation. So as a nuclear researcher, I would like to contribute in this direction. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Aditya Satsangi. I am the CEO of Equity Ventures, Nitai Partners Equity Ventures. So we also have the largest body of entrepreneurs working with us. So my specific request to you is our emails don't get answered when we want to engage with the Indian government. And we have invested in other countries. So when we don't get a response, we go to other countries. So that is one priority I want to focus on.
Thank you very much. Investment we will talk in the coming PPD. Please confine yourself to youth, youth and youth. Anybody who is in the center and cannot get hold of the mic, please move on the side so that you can get the mic.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Nupur Kohli. I was born and brought up in the Netherlands, and I thank you very much for all the points you have made. Though I would first like to ask, who here is still younger than 30 and lives abroad? Well, I'm very happy to see you. And I was missing a very important group, which is the young professionals and the young entrepreneurs. You mentioned the students, of course, but I, as a young person still in my 20s, I would like to connect with those young professionals and young entrepreneurs and how we can actually help each other, because that was one of the things that have been a difficulty for me the last few years. So if there's some way so the young leaders from all the countries are able to really connect with each other and help each other's economies, that would be really great, because in the chambers, there are still the people whom we call the older people. Thank you.
Can I request you, please raise your hand.
Nupur, is it? Your name?
I will identify, and then you speak. Now, I would also request the panel.
Ravish, let me just, thank you so much for your suggestion. It's a very valid one, and I think we've taken a note of it as to how we can create avenues and platforms where you remain connected for discussions and then take it forward from there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bini Shah. I'm the Executive Director of International Institute of Waste Management. I would like to raise the point on, you mentioned that there is a list of youth available from various countries. We organize certain programs in different countries, especially with the entrepreneurs who go to the other countries and looking for some kind of a networking. So we would like to know if there is a youth list which we can also access, because when we have such programs, it would always be good that the youth engage in such activities. So how do we access it? Is there a portal?
No, I think what I'll do is I'll request one of the panelists, maybe if you could answer, if you are aware of this.
Is there a portal? Because we are from India, and when we want to plan such an activity, how do we access it? And what is is it just a list, or is it also kind of an interest which the youth have?
Okay. Hello. Yeah. So I'm not representing the government. I'm sure, as the minister here has said, that they will probably find a channel for all of you to engage. But I'm representing a policy research group called Vision India Foundation, and we similarly work with youth in India on policy issues. So definitely, if you would want, I mean, that way, directly as a people-to-people connect, obviously, I can definitely say that we can definitely help you out. So if you can look up Vision India Foundation and you want to see how we can connect at that level, definitely possible. But from the government, obviously, they would be taking their own initiatives.
The gentleman standing here.
Thank you very much for Nupur. I think she raised about this, how the young can be connected. So my name is Professor Satish Krishnamurthy. I am still young, under 40, and with the help of the vision of Modi ji and also from High Commission of India, they requested us to do this connection actually. So I'm Vice President of Indian Chamber of Youth Entrepreneurs, which was asked by Indian High Commission and then Ministry of Coordination to start. And we have about close to 850 members, out of which 500 are from UK and 350 from India.
Can you come to the recommendation, please?
And we connect each other, and we also work with the Government of India to work, the Government of India in particular state, Karnataka, where these young entrepreneurs interact and they work on 4 themes on transport, education, and networks. So like that, there are other initiatives, and you are also welcome to join our group as well if you wish.
The lady behind sitting there. Yeah. Just hold on. I think somebody wants to respond to the point.
So, firstly, my namaskar to everyone here. I'd just like to follow up on Nupur's question and your comment. I think one of the points here is the onus is on us, the Indian diaspora living overseas. I myself am a doctor as well, and I'm thirsty for networking with people of similar backgrounds. But I think where we are going with this is rather than looking to the High Commission or Consulate to accommodate and provide everything to us, there's simply going to be a port of call. And then with the OCI directory, which Ravishji mentioned, I think the aim was to create subcategories within that directory. It can point you to the direction of whether you're a professional, you're a student, or you're a business owner, but then it will be, the onus will be on us to get together locally and to take some action. I think till date, the real essence for me as someone born outside India is previously myself living overseas in India was a very passive relationship. But now it's about, well, let's get directly involved, and I think that's how the aim is of this whole directory.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lavisha, and I'm here with the Golden Jubilee edition of the Know India program. I'm from Australia. I'm an event manager there. And my question, I hope it's relevant, just to know about people that go from India overseas, and also when they're done with, for example, if they go as a student and they're done studying, then they see what they have to do with their career. Do they often find opportunities back in India to come back and settle, or is it for them to stay in a country abroad, struggle, and spend more than half their lives to making life better for themselves? Is there an opportunity for them to come back? Because staying away for 10 years, 12 years, finishing their studies, is very difficult for them to come back and settle, and they find it an easier opportunity to stay overseas and struggle there, even though they can, in theory, have a better life coming back home to India. What do you
Thank you.
comment on that?
Eyelet, would you like to answer this?
Yes. Is it working?
Yeah.
So, namaste, my name is Eyelet Dekel. I'm from Israel, 28 years old. And I can tell you about myself. I born and brought up in Israel, but I chose to come back to India. So right now I'm working for the Israeli consulate in Mumbai for the Trade Department. So I know that a lot of Indians are immigrated to different countries, and after they want to come back, I can vote on myself that if you want it, so you can do it in a different ways, but I did it, and I feel happy about it. I feel that I represent both countries, my country Israel and also my motherland, India.
So is there something that you are working on to promote that, for people to know overseas that, yes, India is a possibility for me to come back and work to?
Yeah. There are enough things that are happening in India which any youngster can come and make use of. Plenty. All that is needed is to make up your mind that after you have studied abroad, you want to come and work in India and do well. And let me assure you, when you come back to India, you will do extremely well. You will probably do much better than what you do outside where there is no support base existing.
Thank you. I'm in Australia at the moment. I'll consider that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We will take 3 questions at a time. Somebody from the back row there. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, my name is Anjal Katare. I started my entrepreneur journey almost 20 years back when I was in 20s. We have some delivery centers in India as well as a global presence. Has anybody heard of an organization called TIE, the Indus Entrepreneur? That is a global platform where we have like almost 60 chapters all across the world. We recruit young entrepreneurs over there. And I would encourage Indian government to look into this to see if young entrepreneurs from India can be recruited, can be part of that, so that there could be an interaction with the entrepreneurs from all over the world. TIE has given me an immense platform to basically build my business, grow my business internationally, and it can do it for every young entrepreneurs out there.
Thank you. Yes, please, the gentleman here. Please pass it on to him. Yeah.
Good afternoon, esteemed panel. So firstly, thank you so much for the interesting thoughts. So what I have at least gathered by what the dais, members on the dais and the audience spoke, there are various platforms, right? Be it a TIE or some international platform. But what I have seen is there are enough and more platforms, but that doesn't lead to an end-to-end engagement. So when I say that, an Indian diaspora sitting on the dais, can they engage with an Indian youth or an entrepreneur or startup, but go all the way, right? It should not be just limited to connections, but it should be limited to outcomes, as I say, because what matters is the outcomes. Obviously, starting point has to be the first interaction, which all there, I think there are tons of platforms, sir said. But how are we measuring outcomes? I think it's one of the very important parameters. Second, suggestion I think is in terms of academia, right? Academia plays the roles of the core research in any organization, right? Whichever the successful industries have been built, they have been built on top of the academia. Be it the Germany automotive industry, they have very close collaboration with academia. How do we engage academia to academia? When you do that academia to academia, I think then automatically the startup roots, because a lot of startups are based as the byproduct from academic research or academic institutions. But the limited point would be, but it should not be just limited to connection. Okay, for example, there's a lady from Israel. Okay, Israel is good in water technologies, agriculture, right? We'll say, okay, we'll provide you support. MOU signed, it's end, but nothing happens. How do you really measure outcomes is the point, I think, which the esteemed panel should look at, because that will be result-oriented rather than just having good highlights in the newspaper. Thank you.
We'll take one question before we go to the panel. Here. Just wait for the mic. Yes, I think it's very difficult to figure out who's young, who's old from here.
Namaskar. I'm Dr. Nandini Tandon from Silicon Valley. I'm a venture capitalist, and I also have been on the Global Board of Trustees of TIE. I wanted to make 2 recommendations because I'm co-chairing the Silicon Valley India Economic Ties, and my co-chair is the CEO of GE Digital. I think 2 things would be very pertinent here. In Silicon Valley, what we are seeing is that it's very difficult for one ramp into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So you have created an outstanding scaffolding and infrastructure for the youth of India to come together, the diaspora, and interface. I'm not saying that the women are any less than men. I'm just simply saying that usually it helps to eke out and ensure that we support women early on so that they can make inroads into STEM. That's one recommendation. The second recommendation is that worldwide today, we have a huge hue and cry on inclusion of diversity, whether it's black, whether it's race, whether it's ethnic. I think India presents an outstanding crucible for ensuring that we can lead by example, that we've had an amazing inclusion of Jews, Zoroastrians, Baha'is. And I think if the Indian youth could then talk to the rest of the world as to what have we learned in inclusion of diversity, I think our contribution for the Indian diaspora would be tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I go back to the panel. Anybody wants to? India.
Namaste, everyone. My name is Vindhya Adapa, and I'm a lawyer in Washington, D.C. I just wanted to respond to the very salient points and question made by the gentleman up front. Where I come from, partnerships, fellowships, centers for India studies are huge, and they have played an extremely instrumental role in helping Indian Americans engage with the youth of India and find opportunities to work in India and to perform service in India. Now, one huge example I can give to all of you is the flagship Fulbright program. I believe that India is the largest, or India receives the highest numbers of of Americans from the Fulbright program. And these types of fellowships actually serve two purposes. So first, Indian Americans have a chance to come here to learn about the culture and society here and to study a field of interest. And at the same time, they also gain a very strong sense of identity. And if we're going to look at outcomes, I think we need to look at short and long-term outcomes. The long-term outcomes I see from something like this, from strengthening these academic centers, from strengthening these fellowships, is that you create a ripple effect. So people are more likely to come back to India to do more work, to study various topics, and to act as liaisons between the two cultures. I can give another example. I studied at the University of Pennsylvania, and we recently opened a Center for India Studies. Under the supervision of a professor, students are able to engage in cross-disciplinary projects and arrive at really unique solutions for issues that we are facing across borders, here in India and also in the States. That's kind of the lens that I come from, and I agree with you that we need to strengthen and invest more into that. I see that happening a lot in the States, and I see the students and young professionals benefiting greatly from these programs.
Yes, please.
Namaste, Pranav from the United Kingdom. I invite all of you to take on an initiative. One thing we've done in the United Kingdom is start the India-UK Legal Exchange Program. Now, we didn't have necessarily the backing of the Indian Embassy at the time, but once you start something, these three individuals are so receptive along with their outreach teams. So I invite you to maybe, if you're in a profession, whatever the profession is, start an exchange program where we can have diaspora members from your host country liaising with the members of India. And the second thing is get them to start writing and thinking more about what they can do to increase the partnership between the home country and India. One thing we did in the United Kingdom is we got young professionals to write a book to explain how India and their host country can get closer together. And Mulay-ji has actually written the four story in this book. So maybe get more young people writing, thinking, and don't wait for the government bodies to do it. They will be fully on board. They always have been. But let's start, I invite you to start initiatives straight away and see how easily the Indian government would be on board with that.
Just two quick points. I think two observations which came up frequently during this conversation was how the networks for young professionals, and secondly, if those wanting to come back, then could they come back? Well, India is a great growth story, and I would urge all of you to look at the government ministries' websites. And we are in Uttar Pradesh, so I'd just like to give you a statistics here. The government's great program of electrification for all, it's 99% done by March 2019. It will be completed. Uttar Pradesh had the greatest challenge, and it has the greatest success as far as electrification is concerned. You look at any ministry, whether it is sanitation, whether it is water, whether it is the cleaning of the Ganga, whether it is telecom, power, oil and natural gas, all these sectors, core sectors, are the sectors of opportunities. So whether you want to start up with a digital company, you want to do an event management, India is the place to be. So I would urge all of you who are present here, young people, please study the government websites very carefully. They have all the opportunities listed there, and you will definitely take the decision of coming back to India.
Rajiv, you want to say something?
Yes. My name is Ranjiv Nirgan. I'm an advocate from South Africa. We've been working very closely with the with the Indian consulate, and we've exposed many of the programs that the Indian government has. And we have people that have come to India and studied, youngsters, who don't want to come back home. They want to actually live and practice the profession that they've qualified for in India. So there are definitely positive things that are happening, and India is being seen now as a place that you can come back and settle in and develop.
Thank you. I will take the next round of 3 questions from really young people. There, yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I have one suggestion and one question. Firstly, I'll go for the suggestion, sir. I am pursuing bachelor's in political science from Banaras Hindu University, and what I want to say is that our curriculum and our course with international relations is very limited, and it is only based on stats and data, and we don't have any remarkable portion of the diaspora or the Indians living outside India. So my suggestion is that there should be a special curriculum in the graduation phase of these Indian students, that they should also have the study of the Indian diaspora and how they are important, because we are only limited till the India and foreign relations. We have no mention of the Indian diaspora. So this is my suggestion.
Thank you.
And my question, sir, my question.
Okay.
My question to all of the NRIs here, that if a person goes outside from India, he goes in the search of better economic conditions. But as the Minister, Madam Sushma Swaraj, said that we are going to become the youngest country with the youngest population, but we have a shortage of employment too, and that will lead to migration. So my question is, how can we enhance our skill development? Because the government has launched many programs for skill development, but how the common folk and common young can connect them and can create their skill development through their own? Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody from the back row there, yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Ujan Natik from, I study Political Science and International Relations Honours from Jadavpur University, West Bengal, and I'm also an alumni of Vision India Foundation. So one suggestion that I would like to provide is that one thing that I noticed, that most of the exchange programs, they are limited to academia or for executives and professionals. The area of public policy is not so much put importance upon when there is exchange program. So I would like to suggest that there are think tanks and organizations like Vision India Foundation, which organizes public policy programs throughout the year. And I would like to suggest that the government should partner up with several think tank organizations around India and provide a platform for the non-residential Indians to engage in these public policy and governance programs in India, so that they can identify where in our country public policy is ahead or where we are lagging behind, and then they can bridge that gap between their their situation and ours. So my suggestion is this: partnering up with these think tanks.
Thank you. Can I have an input from somebody who's based abroad, Indian diaspora, young Indian diaspora? I think you can go ahead, please. Mike. Can I have the mic here in front? Please come to the input with a very brief introduction.
Hi, I'm Keshav Agnihotri. I'm from USA, and I was born and raised there. So I was wondering, so as someone who was born in the USA, I don't really know much about the Indian history. I don't know how to speak Hindi, and I don't really know much about that stuff anyways. So I was wondering if there could be, like, as you know, there's Babbel, which teaches people other languages from all around the world. but there's no Hindi in Babbel. So I was wondering if there could be an app or something like that that could teach people Hindi and the history. I understand there are like classes that people can take to do that, but they aren't available for everyone all around the world. So just wondering that.
I'll take one more, maybe the fourth question. Yeah, just right behind you.
Yeah, my name is Rakesh Sharma. I'm one of the 20% Indian doctors in US. I've been there for 38 years. And I come from New York. I don't have any question, but I do have some suggestions. And I apologize that I'm talking in English. And the reason I'm doing it is that this is a forum where this is the only language we have been using. Just like this young man just said, that if you're born in another country, how do you keep learning a language that came from your parents? I have 3 boys born in US. They speak excellent Hindi. If they come to India, they won't have any problem communicating. But the problem in India is, in our own country, we think Hindi is inferior. If you want to show off to someone walking in the street, you must speak in English. If you go to a restaurant, and you talk in Hindi, everyone thinks that you perhaps didn't go to a college. The issue here is, all of us travel a lot, especially Indians who live in US. I was in Paris 3 months ago. Nobody speaks English in Paris unless you are at the airport, hotel, and some restaurants.
Dr. Saab, I'll have to interrupt.
Sure.
You know, I mean, if you can be specific about what can be done,
Absolutely.
we can take it on board.
Absolutely.
Just be very specific.
Yes.
The panel, they are waiting to answer your question, but be
Sure.
very specific.
Okay. Indian government has some responsibility to Indian diaspora, and that responsibility is to keep the language alive for people who live outside. And what they need to do is...
Thank you. Yes.
No, 1 second. They need to invest some money outside, not just in places
I
like
got your
these.
point.
Thank you.
Before I pass it on to the panel, let me tell you, have you actually gone to our embassy in the US or the consulate and checked? No, just hold on. Let me.
I have to answer your question. You just cannot ask a question and not wait for the answer.
Let me finish. What I'm saying is that there are several embassies and consulates abroad who are supporting the Indian community organization when they are coming up for teaching a language. I can tell you that if there is a community organization, you say that, look, I have 50 people, they all want to learn Hindi. I have identified a teacher. Can you give us a venue? I think what I'm trying to tell you is that the suggestion sometimes has to also come from the diaspora that, look, this is what we have. Can we get some support from the embassy or the government of India?
Okay. I have little 2-minute answer. Number one, we as Indians in New York have opened up 6-7 centers on Long Island, which is a suburb of Manhattan, and we take on ourselves to teach Hindi to all the Indian kids born there without any help from Indian government. Number two, let me make it very short. I'm also president of Indo-American festivals in New York, and we have been celebrating Dashera in New York 4 years in a row with real Ravan, and I'll show you the video.
Dr. Saab, we are very proud of you. Now we'll go to the...
Not a single penny has come from Indian government to keep the Hindu culture alive outside India.
What do you... anyway,
Dr. Saab, what I'm asking is, if you are spending so much money...
Dr. Saab,
Sure.
ये डिस्कशन हम बाद में कर सकते हैं. ये आपकी जो व्यथा है वो मेरे से डिस्कस कर लीजिएगा अलग.
आप अलग से कर लीजिए.
ठीक है. हर चीज सरकार नहीं करती है. हम अगर सब मिलकर करेंगे तो पूरा संसार बदल जाएगा.
Yeah. Some panelists want to respond? Okay, I'd like to respond to that. So, similar to yourself, I'm a physician. और मेरे दादाजी 100 साल पहले निकले थे भारत से, तो मैं तीसरी पीढ़ी हूँ इंग्लैंड में. और जब हिंदी की बात आ रही है, I would actually like to congratulate this government because at the UN, Atal ji, Adarniya Modi ji, Sushma Swaraj ji, they all speak Hindi. And to be honest, there's no substitute for leading by example. Point number one. Point number two, there is a big onus on parents. I can tell you, we are talking about overseas diaspora here. but we're not talking about the elephant in the room. We are oversimplifying. There are three distinct categories of overseas diaspora: the new migrants, the generations between 1 and 3, and those who have been overseas for over 4 generations. Each of their requirements are very different. Each of those categories will be connected to Bharat in a very different manner. We cannot sit here, pump out initiative platform after platform, and expect that automatically everything will fall into place. That is not realistic. मुझे इतनी डांट पड़ती थी घर पे अपने पापा से अगर मैं एक शब्द अंग्रेजी बोलूं, इतनी डांट पड़ती थी. And thankful to him, I now speak Hindi, and I'm teaching it to my 3 boys who are 4th generation. They are not allowed to speak English at home. And Adharaniya Rathore ji said this in his opening speech as well. The language is what connects us. Dono aani chahiye, ye to hai. Now, talking about those generations, there is a practical connect and there's an emotional connect. We have been focusing very much on the practical connect. What can the Sarkar do for us? Which programs are there? Which platforms are there? And I think one of the gentlemen from the US, the younger chap, thank you for raising that about language and heritage, because we must acknowledge those who are new migrants from India, they will not be inclined towards culture, heritage. As you have said, they are coming for pursuit of economic outcomes. But if you look at a lot of the panels here, we are secure economically, socially, politically. So we would want to connect via heritage, bhasha, kapde, khana, all of those things. And Rathorji inaugurated the National Museum of Indian Cinema only a few days ago. See, the Indian cinema is such a unique situation in India, in Bharat, because we've got both music and acting industry into one, unlike Hollywood, where the music is separate and the movie business is separate. So answering your question, the government is already working. Look at the movies which are out. Bahubali, the empowerment of women, that is what our tradition advocates. In that movie, every woman was so strong. Think about it. Number 2, Uri. I mean, these are the realities of New India. That's why we are here. We don't want to waste your time. We are here to illustrate the new India and how we can be more proactive. As I said, not to just sit on our chair, make recommendations and go to the comfort of our houses in our countries. So we must also, we must be clear, are we talking about the practical connect or the emotional connect? Unless you work on the emotional connect, it's not going to work. There are people who are interested in Bharat and those who are not. And I can tell you overseas, there's a lot more people who are not interested in Bharat than those who are. And I'm talking about our generation here. So we must do both, emotional and practical.
Yeah. If I may say something real quick, I would like to respond as well. Hello?
Yeah, it's working.
So as someone who was born and raised in the U.S., I just want to share my perspective. I agree with a lot of the comments made by Anilji, and I also just wanted to say my parents came from Andhra Pradesh in 1988. My mom grew up in the north. I speak Hindi and Telugu. And I speak both languages because we can sit here and be prescriptive about what the government should or should not do. But the onus to carry these languages forward falls upon us, upon my parents, upon myself when I have children, on my grandfather who used to teach me how to read and write Telugu. And in the United States particularly, there is a rise in Tamil language schools. I would encourage you all to check out the California Tamil Academy. They are now operational in over 13 states. If we open these schools, if we invest the time and resources to train ourselves, to train our teachers, then we ourselves can be the trainers in our communities. Because the reality is that after I have children and my children have children, it is the connection becomes more tenuous. It's a lot harder to point fingers and say, you should have done this or you should have done that. The onus falls upon us. I also want to underscore another point made by Anilji about the power of Hindi cinema and Bollywood. I learned Hindi from the age of 4 because of Bollywood. And so we have the softer precepts available to us. It's not necessary that we have to constantly have someone externally bring that to us. We can seek it ourselves. We have a rich film industry. We have a Telugu film industry and a Tamil and Hindi film industry. We have dance. We have Carnatic and music and Hindustani music. We have these precepts available to us, and it's up to us to take more of an active approach instead of a passive approach and make sure that we're doing what we can in our communities to continue this forward, especially being as far away as we are in the United States. Thanks.
Thank you, Vindhya and Anil. Thank you all for participating in this very stimulating discussion. This doesn't mean the end. If you have something which you want to share, please do it through our embassies and consulates abroad. They do all the suggestions, they will come to us, and I think we will take a look at all of them.
So can I, before you close, can I just make one observation? I'm the legal advisor to Government of India in United States, and I was
on the right.
I also see what happens between Indian government and US government.
I think
time and again there is loggerheads.
It's related to youth.
It is for youth I'm talking. The young girls who go to America.
Maybe we can carry this discussion after this, because we are short of time now.
Just a short time. Many masters are de-recognized of young students in America. And then they find themselves illegal there. There are young girls who go to America, they do not know the laws of America, and then they're deported. These kind of things keep happening between US and India. The young Indian people are wearing lockets around their grounds, and then US and India comes in conflict with each other. I have appeared on television again speaking on behalf of MEA, and I'm very appreciative of General V.K. Singh because he has championed this cause, and he contacts me personally to help. So I know what Indian government is doing. It's a great job. But now what I'm seeing is some passports are being impounded, certain new laws are coming.
We are going out of topic.
We need to
please try to understand.
We need to look at those.
We will have a session on that as well.
Absolutely. I just wanted to look at those.
Thank you very much, sir. Over to you.
Okay, I think the discussion has been very vibrant. Just we are going to the concluding part of this session. I'd like to thank all the panelists. About New York, I was the Consul General there from 2013 to 16. And I can tell you about one program that we started there is Consulate at Your Doorstep. The consulate was open to the community for any occasion, any event. So that is the kind of interaction now our embassies are initiating. I'd request Honorable Minister of State, Youth Affairs and Sports to conclude the session with his remarks. Thank you, sir.
ये समाप्त होने तक जरा बैठे रहिए, सुन लीजिए पूरी बातें.
Thank you so much. I think the interaction was great, considering the number of hands that went up. I'm sure there are lots of suggestions and questions that are still in your mind, and we'd love to listen to them somehow through the various platforms that we have, social media, and the number of days that you are here. Just to round up, yes, I think we need more connect between professionals and otherwise, and so perhaps maybe an application which becomes like an aggregator of various groups. So you form the groups, you work on those groups, and if those groups are successful and are working, then perhaps Ministry of External Affairs might add you as with them being as the aggregator of various groups. So if you have to look for a connect in terms of profession, in terms of advice or anything, you could just come onto that mobile application which connects people. There were a lot of questions about, and perhaps this could answer that yes, India has already started investing in skill development right from schools now, which is a new change. So not just education, there's going to be skill development as well. And if you look at the opportunities which are there in India, both in terms of the huge investments that are coming from the government of India and from people outside the country into India, and the largest market which is there in the world, which is India, then obviously this becomes the greatest place for opportunity. And so therefore, where investment is there and opportunity is there, that's where you all ought to be. My friend who wants to learn Hindi and he's struggling because there's nobody there to teach him, I'd like to advise, and more friends more guys like you. There are a lot of people who from India went to, and I have an example, who went to Germany and started working there. And then I met him after a couple of months, and he was speaking crackling German. And I asked him that, how did you do that? So he says, I just used to turn on the news in German and used to try and speak those words. So my friend, radio, all radio stations of India are on internet. and therefore they are on your mobile where you do Facebook and Instagram. So please download the All India Radio application, and you can listen to wherever you are, the Hindi languages, and therefore try and learn those words, and you'll stay connected. That's how I am learning English. I'm not so great in English, so I'm still learning. So it's a continuous effort. A gentleman was talking about how he's doing a lot for Hindi, and he's not taking not a single penny has come from the government of India. I don't know whether he was complaining or he was proud of it. I think we ought to be proud of the fact that we are not taking anything from government of India and still doing something for our country. That's what we all ought to do. There's a very small population of this country which is keeping this country strong by paying taxes and by thinking on behalf of the rest of the nation. And therefore, we all ought to be proud that we are the people who take this country forward and strengthen it. So we don't need anything from the country, and we will still do it. That is what is our strength. There's a difference between contribution and commitment. I'll give you an example. So in the morning when you have an egg on your plate, it's a contribution by the chicken to your health. But when the chicken itself is there on the plate, that's a commitment by the chicken. And I think we all need to commit to our country. Let's commit to making this nation strong, and we all can do it. If this is India's time. I simply say that this is India's time in this world. The next century belongs to our country, and therefore it belongs to all of you. One more appeal and one more request. That is, when Indian teams travel abroad, they are always looking for Indian khana, Indian people to say hello to ask basic questions कि SIM कौन सा चलता है यहाँ पर, कौन सी telecom service लेनी चाहिए. I think we could also, and this Prime Minister also wanted that we create groups, and perhaps in each city, in each state, wherever you are, and wherever the Indian teams go, we could connect with all of you so that you are there to say hello to the Indian team players. And don't visualize Virat Kohli there. There might be a person like me there, so don't. So thank you so much, and we have had a great interaction.
सबसे पहले तो जो हमारा पैनल है, they took out number of recommendations which were put out to you. If you take your mind back, the first one was language, and सिर्फ एक ही चीज मैं आपको कहना चाहूंगा. मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स सिर्फ हिंदी के ऊपर कंसंट्रेट नहीं कर रही है. वी आर कंसंट्रेटिंग ऑन इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस. वी आर ट्राइंग टू प्रमोट ईच एंड एवरी लैंग्वेज ऑफ इंडिया. एंड फ्रॉम पर्सनल एग्जाम्पल विच Rajvardhan would share with me, in India itself there are so many languages, and we as Fauji's, when we go to various places, you pick up that language. If to my Tamil friends I can say Saukema, Nallar, okay. To my Malayali friends I can say Priyapat Sahodri Sahodra. Okay. My friend from Punjab is there. I can speak to him in Punjabi. It is up to you. आपके ऊपर है. आप क्या सीखना चाहते हो? And Hindi and Indian languages are all very scientific. They are available. There are many apps which are available. And if I was in your place, I would be ashamed to ask the government कि मुझे हिंदी पढ़ाने के लिए पैसे दे दो. एक और प्रोफेशन मिल रहा है, आप हिंदी पढ़ाओ, earn your money. I'm sure people will pay for it. There is very good points came out about the connect, and let me give you two examples. एक हमने business connect किया था अफ्रीका और इंडिया के बीच में. It was a program for about 15 days. At the end of it, 80% of participants, Indian and African, they had made joint ventures to be established either in India or in Africa. They did it. Now, that is something which you tell us. You want to do something, we are willing to go forward and ensure that it is facilitated. The government can facilitate. काम तो आपने करना. सरकार का काम है आपकी मदद करना. पर उसके बाद बढ़ना आपने है. And like Colonel Rajvardhan said, this is India's time. आप बाहर हैं, we have to make use of it. We have to go forward on it and see as to what opportunities are available, what we can do, suggest something, and let me also give you one more example, which will come up in the subsequent sessions. We had a session on waste management, and we had a panelist who had come from Gujarat. His introduction was, मैं कबाड़ी वाला हूं और मैं देश का सबसे बड़ा कबाड़ी वाला बनना चाहता हूं. He found that this is an opportunity which is gold. He started with 10 vehicles. He's got 180 vehicles. He's got 4 cities that he looks after. He's got a huge staff and he's paying them well. He moves around in the best of vehicles. Now, that opportunity has to be made use of by people. Most of the time what we find is, when you go abroad, you are looking at very traditional fields. Engineering कर ली, computers कर लिया, artificial intelligence कर लिया, but there are many more which can be used. And therefore, it is up to you to choose an opportunity that is available in India. And also choose an opportunity by which you can do the networking where you can make it a worldwide movement. Do it. There's nothing that stops you. And let me tell you, once you start it, there'll be many, many people who will come and assist you. Many, many people. But you have to start. Lastly, just I'd like to sum it up with 2 lines of Harivansh Rai Bachchan. लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती. आप कोशिश करिए, आपके साथ हम कोशिश करेंगे भारत सरकार के तौर पर, और भारत का स्वाभिमान, भारत का मान और भारत का नाम सब जगह बढ़ाएंगे. धन्यवाद. जय हिंद.
Well, the session stands concluded. Thank you so much.